Hi, welcome to another wine and rum video. I'm the wine and the rum isn't here today because I'm actually making the video for Sam. Because he loves me so much, he's decided to learn German. And on top of that, if you aren't aware, I'm from Austria, so we speak Austrian German, which is still German, like we use the same vocabulary mostly, the same grammar, but there is enough differences that to some people it might sound like a slightly different language. For example, I've been told it's a bit like, imagine you learn English from US textbooks, you have a US native speaker who teaches you the pronunciation and everything, and you're like, okay, I can speak English, I'm grand, I can go wherever I want and be fine. And then you find yourself in the Scottish countryside and you're like, okay, I have no idea what this language is, I'm not understanding anything, help. And apparently that's pretty much what it's like to learn German, because you usually use resources from Germany and then you go to the Austrian countryside and you're like, this is not the same language. So that's why I wanted to make a video for Sam or anyone else who wants to learn German and finds themselves in Austria, just to help you maybe get a few shortcuts to understanding us. Before we start, just a little disclaimer. So the variety of Austrian German I speak is from an area in Lower Austria where they grow a lot of wine, hence the name, the wine. And it's also close to Vienna, so if you find yourself Lower Austria, Vienna, it'll probably be closest to what I'm going to talk about in the video. If you go to the west of Austria, like Tyrol or Vorarlberg, I can't help with that. Like sometimes I don't even understand people from Vorarlberg. Like it takes me a while to get into their accent because I don't hear it a lot, so if you're looking for that, I'm sorry, you're not going to find it in the video. But without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing you're probably going to learn in any new language is the verb to be and how to conjugate it. Well, that's already where the differences with Austrian German start, because we conjugate it a little bit different. So I'm going to put up a little thing here and I'll read out the pronunciation just so you can hear how it's different. So I'll start with standard German, like the German you're probably used to from textbooks first, and then I'll do it in Austrian German. So in standard German it's Ich bin, du bist, sie es ist, wir sind, ihr seid, sie sind. And in Austrian it becomes a little bit more like Ich bin, du bist, sie es ist, wir sind, seid, wir sind. And depending on what area you're from, it might sound slightly different, but as you can tell, it already sounds a lot different. One of the biggest differences is probably that we in a lot of the Austrian dialects becomes mir, which is an entirely different word. Don't ask me how that happened, that's just how it is. So I'm also just gonna try and put it into full Austrian German sentences just to give you an example of what it sounds like in full context. Ich bin im Garten, du bist im Wohnzimmer, sie und es sind im Kino, wir sind in der Schule, seid nicht in der Schule, sie sind auf Urlaub. My second point on the list is something that also comes up a lot in everyday language. It's basically how to negate statements, so how to say no, don't, can't, none, all of those things that you'll find in a lot of sentences. So you might have heard, especially if you've met people from Vienna or people talk a lot about people from Vienna, they say that Austrians aren't known to be the most enthusiastic, and that's pretty much translated into how our language works. So if an Austrian tells you, oh, that's not bad, that's actually very high praise from, for example, a Viennese person. For them to say not bad means maybe that's super awesome, amazing, best thing I've ever seen, to someone from maybe America or a language that tends to be more enthusiastic. So because of that, it's very important, you know, how to negate statements, because it comes up a lot in everyday language. So I'll again read out statements in standard German first and then in Austrian German so you can hear the difference. Nein, na, nicht, nicht, kein, keines, keine, keine, keins. So what that would sound like in actual examples, again, first in standard German and then in Austrian German. Nein, danke. Na, danke. Weiß ich nicht. Weiß ich nicht. Wir haben keine Milch. Wir haben keine Milch. So in the first 2 points, we've covered a lot of stuff that comes up in everyday language, just vocabulary. Point number 3 deals with how we actually pronounce stuff, because trust me, there is a very big difference to the German you speak in Germany. So much, in fact, that I've confused many German people with the way I pronounce stuff. So one of the biggest differences that maybe even anyone who's never even learned German can immediately tell is that Austrian German sounds a lot softer, smoother. It doesn't sound as harsh as the German spoken in Germany is perceived. And reason for that is that we pronounce certain sounds the same way, even though in Germany they pronounce them as completely different sounds. So the most noticeable out of those is B and P, like in a bee and a penguin. So in Austria those are the same sound. They're both spoken like the softer B in B, like Z, B. And that can confuse even Germans. Like, you have the German verbs backen and packen, if you pronounce it German, so to bake and to pack. But if you're Austrian like me, you say backen and backen. It's pretty much the same. So when I told Germans, when I was on a summer academy thing, I have to go now, ich muss meinen Koffer packen, they looked at me like, what do you mean you're gonna bake your suitcase? You're like trying to shove it in the oven or something? And I was like, obviously I'm gonna go pack my suitcase because it's the last day of the academy. I'm like, even if you couldn't understand my pronunciation, it should have been obvious for context. But they're so not used to that pronunciation at all, it even threw them off. So I completely understand if that happens to language learners when they come to Austria and they're like, help, words don't sound anymore like they're supposed to sound. So the B and P difference is a very big one. Another big example for this kind of thing is the letters D and T, like in drink and tea, like I drink tea, like I always do. And we pretty much pronounce both of them as a softer D, like drink. So for example, dir and tier in Austrian German sounds more like dir and tier. There is not much difference, and that can also be quite confusing. So once again, I've got some example sentences for you. I'll read them out in Standard German first, and then in Austrian German. Backen, packen, bocken, pocken. Dir, Tier, dir, dir. Ich backe einen Kuchen, ich backe einen Kuchen. Ich packe meinen Koffer, ich backe meinen Koffer. Der Kuchen gehört dir, der Kuchen gehört dir. Das Tier hat deinen Kuchen gefressen. Das Tier hat deinen Kuchen gefressen. So those are three big differences I noticed between the German that's spoken in Germany and also mostly taught to non-native speakers, and the German that we speak in Austria, or particularly the east of Austria and Vienna. So I hope my three little shortcuts can help you understand us better. I know we look grumpy a lot of the time, but don't get discouraged. Still try, speak your German or try understand it. Promise we'll be a lot more patient than maybe what we look like. Because we do realize German is a very hard language to learn, and then on top of that, particularly trying to understand our accent, because even Germans get confused sometimes, so don't get discouraged if it's a little difficult for you at first. You'll get there. Also, Sam, the Rum, he'll be back in the next video, and we'll probably be doing more videos like this where we also talk about his progress with learning German, some tricks and tips that we find work for him. So make sure to subscribe to catch up with that. And see you next time in the next video when the Rum is back. Bye!